Okay, so next one is the last, actually, last heading, how the economy as a whole works. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
How the economy as a whole works. Now, the first heading was discussing about the behavior of the individual. The second heading was discussing about the interaction about the among the individual. And the third heading is explaining how economy as a whole is working. So everything is under this heading. Okay. So this is principle A. Country standard of living depends on the ability to produce. Now look, this is very complicated one, but the heading is complicated one. But the thing is very easy to understand. Look, if you can earn more, try to understand. If you can earn more, that means your income level is very high. So you can spend more for your living, right? You can purchase a car, you can, you can purchase some a better clothing, everything. You can go for holiday um, in each month like this. This is how you can improve your standard of living. Okay, so standard of living is dependent on your income level. Fine, that part is okay. Do you agree with that? Standard of living is dependent on the income level. Are you agree with it?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
now the question is how you can increase your income level. You have to produce, right? If your productivity is very high in the workplace, then you can earn more. Somehow you have to be very pretty. You have to be very productive in your workplace. Whatever work you are doing, you have to be productive there, right? So if you gather the productivity knowledge, that means you are, if you know, all individuals are not human capital. Hmm? There is a difference between human and human capital. All human beings are not human capital. If a human is getting some skill, anything, may not be education, he may be very good carpenter, he may be very good plumber, whatever work, but he must have some skill. Then only that human is called human capital. Okay, so you must be a human capital, then only your productivity is higher and you can earn more and your standard of living is more. Okay, so this is actually a cycle. Look how. So this is one side, which I explained is one side. And somehow you have to select, like you have to be a human capital. You have some skill over the production. For any type of production, you must have some skill. Once you have the skill, then you can produce more. And if you produce more, your income is high. And if your income is high, then your standard of living is high. This flow part is okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Now,
Yes,
now
ma'am.
look, if
Yes,
your
ma'am.
standard of living is very high, that means if your income is very high, you can spend a lot to develop the human capital, right? Those parents who have higher income, they can spend a significant money for the education of their child. है ना? If the
Yes, ma'am.
household income is very high, then only significant money can be spent for the skill development of children of the house. Okay, so if you have money, then you can improve your productivity. And if your productivity is high, then your income is high. Again, if your income is high, your productivity can be improved. And if you improve your productivity, your income is high. Okay, it's just like a cycle. Once you enter in the cycle, you can automatically increase your standard of living day by day. Do you get the point? Without increasing your income, you cannot, without getting some money, you cannot develop your skill. You cannot be more productive. I think you are not agreeing with me. So where is mm, your doubt, or where is your argument? So where is your problem? Can you hear me again? This is the basic problem. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let me explain it again. I think it is not clear to you. Look,
No, ma'am, it is clear.
just a minute. If your productivity is high, this is a flow chart. Actually, I used to do it in the blackboard. If your productivity is high, then your income is high. Okay, I for income. If if your productivity is high, then your income is high, and if your income is high, then your standard of living is also very high. You can improve your standard of living. Hmm. And as your income is very high, you can spend some money to improve human capital. That means you can increase human capital of other individuals of your household. Okay. Human capital. Hmm. So as your income is high, you can improve the human capital. And if your human capital is rising, then your productivity is rising. So look, it's like a cycle. You get the thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So I
Yes, ma'am.
have just written it in the short form, as it is not possible to write everything with this type of pen. So productivity is high means income is high. Income is high means standard of living is high. And as your income is high, that means you are spending a lot of money for human capital development. And if human capital is developed, productivity is higher. So it's just like a cycle. So you have to enter within the cycle. Individual has to enter within the cycle, then automatically his standard of living will increase day by day. Hmm. So some of our, if you consider a less developed economy, it is not easy to enter there for the economy as a whole. Because if it is a less developed economy, the income, there is no money actually. There is no money in the hand of different people. And how they can enter there? There again we need the government. There we need the government subsidy. There we need some government programs through which government is improving the human capital. And this is what is done in India as well. In India, look, there is in the primary school, free food is there. You know, the in the school called scheme. Do you know the scheme? The children below the age 5, they are going there. Hmm. And this is like the children whose parents are working.
Ma'am, you are not
From
audible. Your
one.
voice is cracking.
What about the Now check. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Actually, what I think, I don't know. Actually, I don't know the mechanism. I'm not the technician. But I think I have to give some pause to my machine so that machine can help me to. talk for some time. Just a minute, wait. যতক্ষণ help করে ততক্ষণ তো বলি. Okay, so this is how the standard of living can be, as I said, if it is a less developed economy, we need the government intervention to improve the human capital. Once human capital is developed, then he can automatically increase the productivity, income, and the cycle has been started. Okay, so this is the way to increase the standard of living for less developed economy. And for the developed economy, it is of no issue because they already have a lot of money on an average. Okay, so this is principle 8. Now look at principle 9. The prices rise when government prints too much money. Now the money is coming. Principle 9. If you print too much money, who can tell me who can print money?
The RBI.
RBI.
Central government. Okay. I cannot print the money. You cannot print the money. Whether you have a printer or not, but RBI only, the sole authority who can print the money. Now, if the government is printing too much money, then in the economy, what to do with that money? Government has to circulate. Government has to distribute that money among the individuals in the economy. And once it is done, each and every individual has lot of money in their hand. Okay. How it is distributed? It is not like there is any distribution center. You have to go there and collect the money. It's not like that. The income level is rising. Your salary is rising. Price of the commodity is rising. This is how government is circulating. Government is giving loan. Government is giving loan to the industry. This is how government is circulating the money in the economy. Okay. Do you get the point? How government is circulating? Do you get?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, once it is distributed, once it is circulated, people have a lot of cash in their hand. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, once you have lot of money in your hand, then you are demanding the commodity. What to do with the money? You have to consume it. No? You have to consume it. Once you may have one dress, now you need 5 dresses. So you are demanding more. So as the demand is there, so again, the situation of excess demand is there. As people are demanding more and more, so there comes the excess demand. And as there is excess demand, you know the price mechanism will increase the price. So price is rising. Okay, so price is rising. This is how printing money is increasing the price. Up to this point, is it okay?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now look.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you said, well, okay, ma'am, it is very good. Price is rising. Now the thing is, there are 2 questions. The very first question is whether rising price is good or not. Answer is yes. To a certain level, rise in price is good. Why? Because it is encouraging the producer to produce. Producers are watching the price of their commodities rising. So they are encouraged to produce more. They are encouraged to sell more. So it is good. It is bad as well. Why it is bad? Because if there is a fast rise in price, the rate of rise in price is very high. And it is a continuous rise. It's not like just price is rising for next 1 month. Say for 1 year, for next 2 years, the price is continuously rising at a higher and higher rate. Then it is not at all good for the economy. Why it is not good? Because people standard of living is falling. Their income is not rising to that level as the price is rising. So again, they cannot manage to purchase all the required commodities. So the standard of living is falling, and there will be some problem of black market. There will be some problem of parallel economy. So many problems economy has to face, and the continuous rise in price. Okay, continuous rise in price is called inflation. So inflation is good to a certain level, but if inflation is high, inflation And double-digit inflation, like 20%, 40% rise in price.
Ma'am,
This
your voice is again cracking.
is
Ma'am,
yes,
ma'am, can I ask you something?
yes, yes, please.
Ma'am, do you use a microphone? I mean, an ear cord or a headphone?
Nothing. I'm just using my laptop, that laptop system.
Yes, that is why, ma'am, you can try using a earphone or a headphone. Then you can use the mic in front of your mouth. Then voice will be clear.
I was trying, but you cannot hear.
Ma'am, sometimes the laptop microphone does not catch the voice properly. If you use a microphone or the from the headphone or earphones in front of your mouth, then the voice will be properly coming
Is it
through.
is it okay now?
Yes, yes,
Okay. Is it better?
yes. Voice is loud and clear.
Okay. Okay. I have.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for your suggestion. I was struggling actually.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So now look, this is what the government is doing. So if government is printing the money in the economy, the supply of money is rising, people has lot of money in their hand, then they are demanding the commodity. As they are demanding the commodity, there will be the situation of excess demand, then the price mechanism is increasing the price. This is how price started rising. And if there is a continuous rise in this price, this is called inflation. Now is it better? The sound is better?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is called inflation. So what is inflation? Inflation is not the price rise. Inflation is continuous rise in price. Continuous rise in price is called inflation. To a certain level, inflation is good. Why? Because that is encouraging the producers to produce more. And obviously, more production means more development. So this is good. But if there is a huge inflation, the price is rising very fast. This is not good for the economy, because in that case, people cannot purchase their necessary commodity because their income is not rising to that level. And there will be a gap between the demand and supply. Everyone is trying to purchase, no one can purchase. So there comes the possibility of parallel economy, there comes the possibility of black market. So these are not at all good for the health of the economy. So that is why a significant level of inflation, generally it is said, this is just a thumb rule, that up to 8% level of inflation is good. 6 to 8% is healthy inflation. And then after inflation is alarming. Okay. This is called hyperinflation. This is called double digit inflation. That means if the inflation is more than 10, 11, double digit. So these are not at all good for the health of the economy. And the money, this is called monetary economy. This is called monetary economics. And we have a chapter on this principle, on this money, in our SEM 5. So that principle 9 in details we will discuss in our SEM 5. Okay. Is it okay?
Yes,
Any
Yes,
ma'am.
query
ma'am.
Yes,
from
ma'am.
principle 9? Acha. So I'm going to principle 10. Now I cannot go. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But my
Yes. Yes.
speaker is not suddenly stop working. এত সমস্যা, আমি এত টেকনিক্যালি না। দাঁড়াও আবার দেখি। Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So this is principle 10, our last principle. Society faces a short-run trade-off between the inflation and unemployment. Huh? So this is actually the Phillips curve. This is a part of macroeconomics. The macroeconomics teacher will discuss it in details. But this is very interesting. Now look, you know what is inflation. Tell me what is inflation? What I explained as inflation. What is inflation?
Inflation
The
is
continuous
increase
rise in the
in price
price.
level.
Exactly. Continuous rise in the price. Say you have inflation. Okay. And say it is healthy inflation. Once you have inflation, as I said, this is very much encouraging for the producer. So producers are interested to produce more. How to produce? They have to employ, right? They have to employ the factors of production. And factors of production is basically four types of factors of production are there, but in short we are considering there are two factors of production. One is labor, another is capital. So within capital another two are included. Okay, land, labor, capital and enterprise. So we just under capital we include all other things other than labor. So there are basically two factors of production, labor and capital. So if you are going to employ more, that means more capitals are employed and more laborers are also employed. So this is very good. This is very good for the economy. So unemployment is falling. Okay. So you can understand that inflation is helping to reduce the unemployment. If there is any inflation, so producers are producing more, they are employing more, so unemployment is falling. This part is okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now look, unemployment is falling, very good. And this is the thing which is very popular, very very catchy for the politicians. They are using it because for the economy like India, unemployment is a major issue. Lot of people are there who are basically skilled, but they are not getting employed. They are interested to be employed, but they are not getting employment, so they are unemployed. So unemployment problem is a very big issue for any of the less developed countries like India. Hmm. India is developing country, fine, but still it is a very important issue. So once you can reduce the unemployment, um, you will get the popularity, right? And people know that if you can increase inflation, you can reduce unemployment. Politicians also know that. So once they have the power, they have started increasing the inflation. I'm not saying this is the only instrument they're using. There are a lot. It is not so easy because reality is very complicated. But this is one of their instruments. They have increasing their inflation rate. As inflation is rising, unemployment is falling. And they're just showing that unemployment reduction data. They are showing, look, I have generated this much of employment in the economy for last 10 years, for last, not 10 years, last 3 years, last 5 years, like that. Look, this is happening. If you go through the news channel, if you go through the newspaper, you can see this is the common statement they are giving. Last 5 years, this government has generated this much of employment. Yes, they are generating employment. This is right. So many avenues are opening. These are also right. But inflation is one of the instruments they are using to generate more employment. Okay. So this is the thing. But the unfortunate thing is that this is not applicable in the long run. In the short run, this relationship is there. But in the long run, this relationship is not there. Okay. Why? Now look, before going to the long run, let me explain short run a little bit more. So what we are watching,
that if inflation is rising, unemployment is falling. So there is an inverse relation between inflation and unemployment. Do you agree with it? There is an inverse relation between inflation and unemployment. Any problem with that relation?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
So the name of this inverse relationship, if you draw this inverse relationship, this line is called Phillips curve. Okay, the line is called Phillips curve. That relationship is actually invented by Phillips. So that is why the line showing the negative or inverse relation between inflation and unemployment. If you write unemployment here and inflation on the vertical axis, if you draw the line between these two variables, it will be downward sloping. So this line is called Phillips curve. But again, the Phillips curve, the negative relation, the inverse relation is only true for the short run. In long run, you cannot get it. So what is the problem in the long run? Long run means longer time period. So what is the problem in the long run? In the long run, when say government is very happy, everyone is very happy that okay, employment is coming out. So and government is rising inflation continuously. So inflation is rising, unemployment is falling, and this thing is happening. After some time, what happened? There, in case of unemployment section, there are two type of individual. Those who are interested to get employment but not getting. There are some people who have the skill but they are not interested to be employed. Okay, they have the skill, they can do the job, but they are not interested to do the job. You can ask me, ma'am, why? Are they irrational? Are they mad? No. Actually, what happened? It you can find among your friends, among your relative, this type of people. They are not happy. Say they are not happy with the the environment of the work culture. That is why they are not interested to do the job. They are not happy with the salary what they can get. That is why they are not going to do the job. If salary is higher, they may go. If maybe they are in very affluent situation, so they are not interested to do the job. But they have the skill, they can, but they are not. So they are not interested to be employed. Can you tell me what is the name of this category? Some of you may know.
Voluntary unemployment.
This is called voluntary. They are volunteered to be unemployed. They are interested to be unemployed. But they are unemployed. Remember, they are unemployed. They are human capital, but they are interested to be unemployed. Okay. You may find some relative among yourself, those who are not interested to do the job. They are very happy within the household work. Yeah, I'm not saying they are irrational, they are bad. No, they are very much rational. But they are not, maybe they are not preferring the job environment. Maybe they are not happy with the income. That is why. This is their choice. But still, they are unemployed. So when you are increasing the inflation and in the long run, you are reducing the unemployment level, the people who are interested to get the employment, they are getting. But after a certain time, you cannot employ the voluntary unemployed section because they are not interested to do the job. Now, how can you get employment from them? So they are not interested. Whatever you are offering, they are saying no. We are not going. We are not going to do the job. So in the long run, what happened? Inflation is very high, but there is a certain amount of unemployment which is fixed, which is constant. You cannot reduce that part of unemployment. So what happened in the long run? There is no relation between inflation and unemployment. Unemployment is fixed and you are increasing inflation again and again. But it will not affect that part of unemployment. So what is the conclusion? In the long run, there is no relation between inflation and unemployment. Now tell me your problem from this discussion. Any problem from principle 10? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
ma'am.
fine. So now tell me your problem.
Reflection.
Okay, so till now I have discussed principle 8, 9, and 10. So out of these three, if you have any problem, please ask.
Ma'am, I have a query from Principle 6. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, last someone asked that in case of high demand, the prices rise and therefore the suppliers produce more. But then the consumers are willing to consume less because of high prices. Then why do the producers still keep on producing? I mean, who are consuming it?
No, 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 no. That is the thing actually. Look, when it will happen, when there is excess demand, right? When there is excess demand, okay, let me draw the diagram. Just a minute. Give me 1 minute. This is the demand curve. Actually, I was not interested to draw this right now, but still. Look, this is the demand curve, this is the supply curve. Just take it as given. Why these are positive, negative curve, that we will discuss in the demand supply debate. But okay, this is the demand curve. Look, this is the demand curve and this is the supply curve. And we are measuring price here and we are measuring quantity on the horizontal axis. This is what we are doing generally. If there is excess demand, that means the situation is like this. Given the price 1, there is excess demand. Why there is excess demand? Because look, the demand is more than supply. Supply is this much, demand is this much. So there is excess demand. And if there is excess demand, as I said, the price mechanism is increasing the price. Okay. Now, when the price is rising, then demand is falling. The demand is moving like this. Look at the arrow. Demand is moving in this direction. Okay, demand is falling. Remember, demand is falling. On the other hand, producers are interested to produce because price is rising. So, producer is moving in this direction, consumer is moving in this direction, and finally, they will meet here. And what is the significance of this point? Demand is equal to supply. Now producers can understand that if I produce something more, no one is there to consume it. It's better to stop increasing the production. So producers are rising the production, as you are asking the question. Producer is increasing his production because he knows there is excess demand in the market. Okay. Any point below this intersection point, any point below this intersection point for any price below this intersection price, producer knows there is excess demand. If I can produce, there are individuals who will purchase it. So that is why they are increasing their production.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Sure. Any other question?
Ma'am, ma'am, can you explain the long run part of the principle? Can?
Okay, this part, principle 10.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what happened in the long run, as people are very satisfied with the inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment in the short run, people are and the government also, so the economy is increasing inflation continuously, and this is how the economy is moving from the short run to long run. Okay. Now, in the long run, what happened, as inflation is rising, unemployment should fall. So unemployment is falling. Hmm. Unemployment is falling. But after a certain level, what happened? There is a section of people within this unemployed category who are not interested to get the employment, who are not interested to be employed. So whatever price you are offering to them, they are just stick that no, we are not going for the employment. We are not going to do the job. So after a certain level, whatever inflation rate will be, that section of people, they will be unemployed. Okay. So if you increase inflation continuously, you cannot reduce unemployment after a certain level, because they are by they have taken the decision that we will not be employed. Okay. So whatever inflation will be in the long run, you cannot get zero unemployment rate. That is what I wanted to say. Zero unemployment is not possible. There must be unemployment. There must be some positive unemployment because of that voluntary unemployed individuals. Voluntarily they are unemployed. They are interested to be unemployed. So how can you give them the job? They are not interested to do the job. Hmm. So that is why after a certain level, obviously it will take time. So in the long run, whatever will be the inflation, you will get unemployment, a positive unemployment. So at that point of time, there is no relation between inflation and unemployment, because after that point, if you rise the inflation, unemployment will not fall. There is no relation between inflation and unemployment in the long run. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, could you explain the principle 7? Yes, ma'am. The last point.
As I said, say there is a producer who is selling the product and he is getting some income. This is called revenue. Okay, this is called revenue, total revenue. Now, as he somehow he is capable to sell the product and he is getting the income level, there are another section in the economy, because of any reason they cannot earn. Maybe they are physically weak, maybe they don't have any skill. Okay, this is called deprived section. Each and every economy has this section. Now, but the what will be the solution for them? So there must be some solution. So what government is doing, government is taking some money from those section, from the seller who is earning. So government is taking some money from the seller with the name of tax, and then he will distribute the tax among the deprived section with the name of subsidy. For example, if you go through the Indian economy today, you can see there is a BPL category, right? They are getting a special type of card, ration card, BPL card, APL card. These things are available in the ration shop. This ration shop means this is the PDS system, public distribution system. So those people who are getting BPL card, who are having BPL card, if they are showing it to the ration shop, almost at free of cost, they are getting food grains, right? If they are showing that thing, they are getting almost free of cost electricity. That means they are getting the commodity at the subsidized rate, maybe 2 rupees, 5 rupees per kg. This is the price of their rice. But this is not the actual market price. So they are getting subsidized. Okay. Now, how the
Yes, ma'am.
government is giving subsidy? From where government is getting the money to give them subsidy? The people who are earning, government is taking money from them as the tax. Everyone who is earning, they have to pay the tax. So that
Yes,
tax
ma'am.
revenue is one of the major source of giving subsidy to those deprived section. So this is how government is equitably trying to distribute equitably the revenue. Okay, and for that, definitely without government you cannot do that. No one can do that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So I think I should stop that principle discussion. There are 10 principles. What is the importance of these principles in our economics? All the chapters which we will discuss, everything is dependent on these 10 principles. So these are actually the 10 pillars of the economy, and we will definitely discuss each of them in separate chapters. Okay, but this is the basic concept which everyone should know, so that when we will discuss it in details, you can relate it. You can remember that, okay, we have discussed it in your unit 1. So this is the thing now I was discussing in details. So that is the reason behind the discussion of 10 principles. Now I'm going to the next one. So let me start unit 2 now. Let's see. To discuss the unit 2. This is very known to those who had economics at school level. But so many new things we are considering this year. Demand and supply. Now look, demand and supply, as I said in one of the principles, that in the market there are two forces who are working actually, who are actually fighting, with each other, because their objectives are quite different. Demand means a consumer, right? Consumers are demanding and producers are supplying. So what is the objective of the consumer? Consumers are always trying to purchase the commodity at the least price, minimum, lowest price. And the producers are interested to sell their product at the highest price. Okay? So you can understand their objectives are just different, just opposite. Hmm. But they are interacting. They are interacting in the market, and finally, at the end of the day, both sides are happy. Both sides are satisfied. Why? How? Okay, you get the point. So demand, that means the consumers are interested to purchase more and more commodity at the lower and lower price, and producers are interested to sell lesser and lesser commodity at the higher and higher price. So just opposite objectives they have, and at the beginning of the day they are coming in the market because they have to come. If you want to consume, you have to go to the market to purchase. If you want to sell, you have to go to the market to sell your commodity. So you have to go to the market if you are a consumer or if you are a seller. And they are interacting. They are interacting. And at the end of the day, both are satisfied in the market. So how they are doing their functions, how they are interacting, uh, how their decisions are influencing the other side. So that is the concern of this unit. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, you just said that the suppliers are more and more interested to sell lesser and lesser commodities at a higher price. How? Why is it so? Like, if the price is higher, then they should be like willing to sell more and more commodities because they'll get more income, right?
Yes. No, actually what happened? If you sell less commodity, then there is a possibility of excess demand so that you can increase the price.
Okay, ma'am.
So this is how they are thinking, that if I control the supply, then there will be excess demand and the price will be higher. in that position and in that higher price, I will sell high. My quantity sold will be higher. Then my revenue will be higher. Okay. This is what they are thinking.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Now look, the market. What is market? It is the place where commodities are exchanged. All of you know that. It may be visible, it may be invisible. That is also discussed. Now in the why we are discussing about the market, because this unit is dependent on the market. In the market, consumers and producers are interacting. Demand and supply sides are interacting with each other. Now, competition is always there in the market. There is, as I said, there is a competition. They are just fighting with each other. So that is called competition. Huh? In economics, there is no such fighting, because this is not a drama. So that fighting concept in economics is called competition. Okay, so competition is always there to sell the commodity, to get the commodity at a certain price. So this is the competition. This is the importance of competition. Everyone is competing with each other to sell the commodity, to consume the commodity, to purchase the commodity, and obviously price is very important from the both sides. Okay. Now what is demand? Demand is the willingness to have a commodity backed by the purchasing power. So most of you know what this is, the basic definition of demand. You must have some purchasing power. You can ask anything to have. For example, you can ask someone to tell me some absurd demand. Give me some example of absurd demand. I'm willing to I'm willing to travel through through rocket. I'm willing to go to moon. I'm willing to go to the Mars. Okay, so this is my willingness. But now, if I look at my parts, I can understand how absurd my demand is. Right? So actually, this is not my demand. My demand is this is my willingness. This is my willingness to go to the Mars. This is my willingness to travel through rocket. So this is the willingness. But when that willingness is backed by the purchasing power, it is converted to demand. So willingness is not at all demand. Okay, demand is a subsection of willingness. Willingness is a broader thing. You can think about anything, but when you are thinking, given your purchasing power, there comes the demand. Okay, so demand always has a constraint. When price of a commodity is increasing, demand is falling. Definitely, without any economics knowledge, just look at the reality and you can say the second bullet. In general, if price of a commodity is increasing, demand is falling. Okay. Now, there is an inverse relation between the price and the quantity demanded for a commodity. This is also very much true. How? If price is rising, say price is rising, then demand is falling. Okay. Rational individual will reduce the demand when price is rising. On the other hand, if price is falling, price of a commodity is falling, people are demanding more. So there is a negative relation or inverse relation between the price and quantity demanded. So this is what written in the third bullet. Okay. Now look the fourth bullet. Change in demand due to change in price of the commodity is called change in quantity demanded. This is very confusing, but try to remember it. Change in quantity demanded. When the demand is changing because of the change in price of that commodity, this is called change in quantity demanded. There is another thing called change in demand. Change in demand and change in quantity demanded, these are not the same thing. Okay, so change in quantity demanded is happening when price of that commodity is changing. But when demand is changed because of some other factor, because the demand is not dependent on the price only. There are so many other factors which can influence the demand. For example, your income level. For example, price of the related good. For example, environment, expectation. So many things are there which are influencing your demand. Even advertisement. If you watch something new in the television, the ad, then you may be interested to have the commodity. So advertisement is also influencing your demand. Like this, if your friend is using something new, you may be very eager to have it. So these things are there behind the demand. So if any such things are changing so that your demand is changing for a particular commodity, this is called change in demand. Okay. So do you understand the difference between change in quantity demanded and change in demand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone? Okay. Now look at the law of demand. So this is as I said, everything is happening in our daily life. But formally, if you want to write it, economics, the law. Because all of you know that if price is rising, we are reducing our demand. But in economics, this is called law. Given all other things constant, there is an inverse relation between the price of commodity and the quantity demand. This is called law of demand. In general, for most of the cases, law of demand is applicable. In general, law of demand is applicable. There are some exceptions, but in general, law of demand is there. In general, when we are going to purchase one commodity from the market, generally we are concerned about the price. Generally, people are saying, "Na baba, price টা এত দামটা এত বেড়ে গেল, কি করে এতটা কিনবো? এই টাকার মধ্যে যা হয় দাও." So this is very common thing we are using. That in that case, when price is rising, we just fix the amount of money. I'm asking the seller that whatever commodity is possible, just give me within this money. So what we are doing, we just reduce the demand. Okay, we are concerned about the money as the prices increase. So this is the law of demand. But one has to remember the thing that when there is law of demand, all other things must be constant. All other things must be constant. All other things means, as I said, there are so many things which can influence our income, like price of related commodity, like influence of advertisement, like environment, weather. So many things are there which can influence the demand. But when we are talking about the law of demand, all those things are assumed to be constant. Okay, assumed to be constant. Given all other things, if there is a change in price, the quantity demanded will go to the opposite direction. It is an inverse relation between the price of the commodity and the quantity demanded. Very simple. This is called law of demand. Any query from law of demand? So if you have the law of demand, then the next thing, actually in economics, what we are always trying to do, we are very much dependent on the diagram. Once you have any relationship, the very first thing, very first task is to draw it. So you have the relationship here, law of demand. So you want to draw it. So here it is. The demand curve, the very first diagram in your SEM 1. This is the very first diagram I am showing you in SEM 1. Look, there are two axes. some things are very important when you will draw these things in your exam. So that is what I want to say. Look, in my diagram, in the horizontal axis, I have written Q, and on the vertical axis, I have written P. So what is Q? Q stands for quantity, quantity demanded. Okay, and P stands for price of the commodity. When you will draw the diagram in your exam copy or anywhere else, which is very important for you, please mention what you are measuring on different axes. You have to mention what you are measuring along the axis. Otherwise, some negative marks may be there. If I have drawn this thing without writing Q and P, some marks will be deducted. So you have to mention what you are measuring on the horizontal axis, what you are measuring on the vertical axis. This is must. Okay. Actually, what happened? This is, as it is very fast diagram. You can think that, okay, ma'am, what is the problem? So single diagram I will mention. What happened in economics? We have to draw thousands of diagrams, and as we are drawing frequently, now these things are missing. We just think, okay, everyone knows it. I will write it later, or okay, I will do it after some time. Okay, so this is how we are living what we are measuring here and where, and this is why the negative marks is there. So try to remember, as it is the very first diagram, I'm saying it repeatedly. When you will draw whatever diagram you will draw for the rest of your life, please mention what you are measuring along the axis. Okay. Now look what happened. If price is P1, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
If
ma'am.
price is P1, then say the demand for the commodity is Q1. Say the price is falling P1 to P2. According to the law of demand, quantity demanded should rise because there is an inverse relation. No? So quantity demanded is rising to Q2. Okay. So you have to. Similarly, you can do the thing for P3, for P4, for P5, whatever you want. But for simplicity, just for make the diagram simple, I have used only 2. So there is a point in this area corresponding to P1, Q1. There is another point for P2, Q2. If you join these 2 points, like in that way, you can take 4 or 5 points. If you join those points, you will get a negatively sloped line. Okay, you will get a negatively sloped line. This is called demand curve. The curve is showing how the demand is changing when price is changing. Okay. If price is P1, then what will be my demand? If price is P2, then what will be my demand? So as this curve is showing the change in demand corresponding to change in price of that commodity, this is called demand curve. First. Second, look at this diagram. Here, the demand curve is drawn as a straight line. You may not draw this. If you are not satisfied with this one, you may not draw this. Generally, and in general, demand curve is a curve. Generally, we are drawing demand curve like this. This is the demand curve. Or this is the demand curve. So straight line is a special type of, look, for each and every demand curve, these are downward slope. So straight line is a special type of demand curve where the slope is constant. This, you can draw this demand curve, you can draw a curve, simple curve as a demand curve. No issue. Okay, there is no harm. You may draw the straight line, you may use a curve to represent the demand relation. Okay. Any problem from the demand curve?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
So here our demand curve is AB. Here our demand curve is AB. Look, this is curve. As I said, you can draw this DD as a curve. The same thing, quantity on the horizontal, price on the vertical. That may also possible. Now, how to get the market demand curve? What is market demand curve? Look, in the market, say there are two individuals in the market. There are two consumers in the market who are demanding any particular commodity. Now, their behavior, their nature, their way of thinking, these are quite different. Two individuals cannot be homogeneous. Two individuals cannot be identical. They are not, they are not factory made. They are human beings. So their way of thinking is different, but everyone is following law of demand. So the responsiveness of the individual is different corresponding to change in price. And that is why for the first individual, that red one is the demand curve, and the second individual, that green one is the demand curve. Look, the slopes are different. The positions, one is above another, but both are downward sloping because everyone is following law of demand. Okay, say there are two individuals, individual 1 and individual 2. Now we want to find out what will be the market demand. Market as a whole, what will be the demand for the market as a whole? How to get the market demand curve? So the second diagram is showing market demand curve. How to get it? In economics, it is called horizontal summation. Horizontal summation of individual demand curves. This is called horizontal summation of individual demand curves. How to do that? Very simple. Take any price, P1. For P1, for individual 2, the price is Q1. For individual 1, for price P1, the demand for individual 2 is Q1. For individual 1, the demand is Q2. Okay. So what will be the total demand at the price P1? Q1 plus Q2. So you just plot Q1 and Q2, Q1 plus Q2 in the second diagram. So this is how, just make the this is what we are doing actually. We are making the horizontal summation, Q1 plus Q2. Similarly, you may get Q3 plus Q4. So just plot all those points corresponding to different price level. Join these points and you will get the line. And just look at the yellow line. This line is flatter than the individual demand curve because this is the horizontal summation. For each and every price, the quantity is quite high as compared to individual's demand. That is why the market demand curve, which is actually the horizontal summation of individual demand curve, is flatter than any of the individual demand curves. Any question from the market demand curve? I should stop here. I will not continue. And in the next class, I will try to finish my unit 1 first. Then I will again come back to the demand. I actually, what happened, I could not find out where is the rest of my unit 1. I will check it. And in the next class, I will finish unit 1 first. Then I will again start unit 2. But before that, just tell me your problem from unit 2. This is the time of question answer. If you have any question, please ask.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am,
Yes. Yes.
ma'am, can you please repeat the difference between change in demand and change in quantity demanded?
Okay. Change in quantity demanded means the change in demand due to change in price of the commodity. That means price of the commodity is a price of tea. When price of tea, TEA, okay, when the price of tea is changing, demand for tea is changing. This is called change in quantity demanded of tea. When price of coffee is changing, that also influence the demand of tea, right? Because they are substitute now. Those people who are consuming tea, they are also preferring coffee generally. So in that case, if price of coffee is changing, that will also influence the demand of tea. And when demand of tea is changing because of change in price of coffee, this is called change in demand of tea. Yeah. So change in quantity demanded is because of the change in price of that particular commodity. Change in demand is because of change of some other factors, not price of the particular commodity. Okay.
Ma'am,
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, so many other differences are there, the movement along the demand curve shifting. So these we will discuss. But for the time being, this is the basic difference. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes.
in the
Can you
market
once again,
demand curve.
ma'am, can you
Demand curve.
once again
Okay.
repeat that why the market demand curve is flatter?
This thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Look, how we are getting the market demand curve? We are just adding Q1 and Q2, right? Q1 plus Q2 corresponding to P1. So that value is definitely higher than Q1 and Q2, right? That value is higher than Q1. Q1 plus Q2 is higher than Q1. Q1 plus Q2 is higher than Q2 individually. So if you put this value corresponding to P1, the line is obviously flatter. And obviously the elasticity matters, that we will discuss. I'm not going to elasticity right now, but if you just add the horizontal values and plot it in the second diagram, the responsiveness is quite high, and that is why the line is becoming flatter.
ma'am,
Thank you.
in case of law and demand, it is told that given all other things constant like income and influence of advertisement and all, but
Yes.
ma'am, in real life, all these things are never constant.
No,
So,
yes, yes. That is the beauty of economics. Just to deviate. If you want to study reality as a whole, it is very difficult. So just to make the thing simple, we are assuming all other things constant. All other things are not at all constant in real life. Real life is very much complicated. Everything is changing. One is influencing other, and this is happening for each and every second. But if you want to incorporate all those factors, you cannot find out the exact relation between the price of the commodity and the quantity. So many other factors are interrupting. You cannot find out the exact relationship between this and that. That is why, just for simplicity, we are assuming all other things are not there. All other things are constant. This
okay,
is
ma'am.
how we have to understand the law. And once you understand, once you can apply it, then you relax this. This is just the assumption. You can relax it. And this is the beauty of the economics. When the complication is coming, we are just assuming all those complications are constant. And then we are explaining the relation between the two or three variables. Once that explanation is done, then we are relaxing that assumption that okay, we just assume rest 3 are constant. Relax that. Now assume rest 2 are constant. One is, let the third one to come in the system and affect. Then we can check. This is how we are relaxing the assumption and we are going to the reality step by step. Who was that student? But I'm grateful to that student that finally he has solved my problem of voice cracking. Thank you. We will meet in the next week. Huh?